Hi, I'm Matt from Educraft.org, and in addition to showing off my new clean-shaven look, I'm gonna help you if you're having trouble with your Gradle commands running Windows, especially if you're on an older computer or running like a 32-bit Windows system. So stay tuned, and your problems will soon be solved. So 9 out of 10 times your Gradle fails, it's because you have RAM issues. RAM is random access memory. It's little pockets of memory your computer uses. Think of it as like you're a person sorting through a filing cabinet and you have to find all the right files and put them in the right places. Your RAM is the pouch, how big a pouch you have slung over your shoulders to put files. You're like, ooh, this is good. Ooh, this is good. Oh, okay. Ooh, this is good. Your RAM is how big that pouch is. And if your pouch is really small, you're going to have to tell your system, hey, I want you to be able to use this much RAM, this big a pouch, in order to do this process. And this can be tricky, especially if your computer only has 2 gigabytes of RAM. Most computers nowadays, the minimum computers nowadays generally have 4. And the Gradle command is recommended to run with 2 gigs of RAM, not total in your computer, but to devote 2 of all of your RAM to your computer, to doing this process. So that's just that process, and in addition, your RAM has to run Windows and has to run your defense, your virus protection, and all this other stuff that you have going. So if you only have 2 gigs of RAM, we have to figure something out. So in the meantime, I'm going to show you how to set the amount of RAM you have for your Gradle commands, and then if you have a particularly low-end computer, I'm going to show you how to set it to have like what I've seen as the basic minimum. If you only have 2 gigs of RAM, this is what you've got to do. So step 1 is going to be for people with probably around 4 or more gigs of RAM who still need to set the RAM availability for Gradle. And then after that, for those of you with a 2 gig of RAM computer, you poor souls, I'll have something for you. Okay, so first you're going to get into your File Explorer. And what we want to do actually before that is we're going to want to check our folder options. So folder options, and we get, so if you do your search in almost any version of Windows that came out since you were born, you're going to be able to have a search feature and search for folder options, and you get folder explorer options, and you click on that, and you should get something that looks like this. You go to view, and you see a thing that says hidden files and folders. You want to make sure this is selected, show hidden files, folders, and drivers. If it's not, you click right here and click apply, and it'll make it so you can see hidden files and folders. And so now you're going to want to open some kind of searching list. In Windows 10, you click on this thing that says, you open your taskbar and you click on File Explorer, or you go in other versions of Windows, you might go to My Computer, and then you go to a place called C, then Users, and then you find your username that you registered with the computer. And you look for something called .gradle. And I'll show you what to do. If you don't have .gradle, I'm going to show you a command prompt. So click on your search again and type CMD, and you'll get your command prompt. And generally the command prompt is going to start out in your home directory. And what you do is, if you don't have a .cmd, you type mkdir space, then if you don't have a .gradle folder in there that you can see, you type mkdir, there you go, space .gradle, and then that will create your Gradle, and then you press enter, and that will create your Gradle folder. So I have it. I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to say new, and I'm going to say text document, and I'm going to edit it. So inside the text document, I'm going to type this command, jvmargs, no, I'm going to type org.gradle.jvmargs equals -xm X to capital G space hyphen capital X MS to G. So notice the caps. This is a capital X, this is a capital X. Okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to say file and save. org.gradle.jvmargs equals hyphen xmx2g space xms2g. You're going to close it and you're going to change the file name. Here's another thing you'll want to do in your folder options that I showed you how to get to. Under view, you're going to want to go down to where it says hide extensions for known file types. This box that says hide extensions for known file types needs to be unchecked. If it looks like this, do this and then click apply, because you need to change the file extension. So notice how when I click on new text document, it goes all the way up and it stops at the .txt. And that's not good enough. We're changing the whole thing, and it's called Gradle.properties. We're going to hit enter, and yeah, computer, I know what I'm doing. We're going to say yes. And if you do this and then you run your Gradle commands, so you go cmd and then you find, well, and then you find forge, I think it's in my desktop. Yeah, and then you type Gradle setup decomp workspace. You're going to have a good time because you have 2 gigabytes and that's the recommended amount. Okay, so good for you. You have a decent computer with probably about 4 gigs of RAM, and you're going to have, if you have trouble with the Gradle properties, if it either freezes or says build fails, that solves 99% of your problems. So next up is if you have a computer that's not so good, that has less RAM. I'm going to show you a trick. It's very similar. So it has to do with changing your Gradle properties. So let me reference an email real quick. And here's the issue. Gradle is recommended to have 2 gigs, which this 2G means. If you only have 2 gigabytes of RAM on your computer, then that means your computer can't run Gradle with this configuration, because it can't run all of its RAM to do one operation on the computer. It still needs stuff for the operating system and for background stuff, so that's just not going to work. And what I found is the minimum amount of memory you can devote to the Gradle system and for it to still to work, I don't know what the very, very minimum of, but this is the lowest number I've seen, is instead of 2 gigs, which is a little over 2,000 megabytes, you give it 1368 M, which means 1,368 megabytes. So let's do it here too, 1368 M. And then you save this file and then try it again. Now, the Gradle commands that I show you in my tutorials are going to take particularly long because you're giving it very little RAM to work with. Okay, but if you only have 2 gigs of RAM, you got to set it to this and then just deal with how crappy your computer is going to be for the next few hours for both of your Gradle commands. That's Gradle W setup decomp workspace and Gradle W Eclipse. Okay, so we're going to save it and just